instantly starts bawling. I asked her why, and she said, because I know Rick is still hurting, but he'll never show it.
In his 20s, you know, he had the drug problems, and apparently he, it wasn't heroin. He ended up getting some fentanyl, killed him.
Rick Harrison lost his son to bad stuff, got sued by his own mom, and saw his best friend taken by the police. The smiling face from Pawn Stars was hiding deep pain the cameras never showed. Behind the shop doors, there were breakups, death, and heavy trouble no one guessed. He kept working, kept smiling while his real world was falling apart. Tune in, because the one who broke his trust wasn't a stranger. It was Chumlee. Rick Harrison's fight to survive. March of 1965, that's when Rick came into the world. A loud house, 3 siblings, and no manual for how to survive grief. Before he was old enough to understand death, it knocked on his door. His older sister passed away, and just like that, the house was quieter in all the wrong ways. When you're a kid and death visits early, it doesn't leave quietly. It stays, like a whisper in your ear reminding you that everything good can disappear. But that silence didn't leave him. It followed him into everything he became.
And no, but I don't know, like, it was just sort of a free-for-all, do anything, you know, live life while I can, because it's all going to fall apart.
Then came the seizures. Not the kind that fade with rest, but the ones that pin you to a bed, steal your breath, and make the world spin when it should be still. He was 8, bedridden, sidelined, while life kept moving for everyone else. While the neighborhood kids played outside, he was stuck flipping through pages, escaping into stories about mischief and trickery. Books became his oxygen. By the time he hit 10th grade, school felt useless. He dropped out, not because he couldn't keep up, but because he saw a shortcut: selling fake Gucci bags for $2 grand a week. He knew it wasn't exactly clean money, but clean didn't pay bills when your family broke. His parents' real estate dream had crashed, and the fallout left holes only a hustler could patch. Then came the next curveball. He got a girl pregnant. Still a teenager, barely able to handle his own life. The baby didn't make it. Miscarriage. Grief showed up again just in case he forgot what it felt like. They cried, they broke, they tried to hold on, and from the ashes came Corey. That kid with the bored face on TV? That's his anchor. His first shot at doing something right. He tried to build a home, but the cracks were too deep. The relationship collapsed, leaving him holding 2 sons and a pile of broken dreams. Then came Tracy, wife number 2. She helped carry the weight, and he buried himself in coins and collectibles. History became his second language. If an old sword walked through the door, he could tell you the name of the man who swung it.
Money is like my 3rd or 4th favorite thing in the world, but it's not everything.
But running a business wasn't just about knowing the past, it was about surviving the present. The early days of gold and silver pawn were brutal. Lease after lease fell apart. Bills piled up. They needed a license to make it legit, but the law said the city needed at least 250,000 people. He waited, watching the population count like it was a lottery ticket. When the city hit the number, he pounced. 1989. That's the year it got real. The pawn shop opened, and he and his dad threw everything into it. At first, they sold anything they could grab: sports gear, war relics, tarnished jewelry. But soon they realized the sparkle brought the cash. Rings, necklaces, watches. Those paid the rent. And then lightning hit. 2 TV producers came to Vegas looking for something strange, something gritty, something real. They walked into the shop and saw all 3. He had been waiting for this moment. He'd always believed the shop deserved a spotlight, and now it was blinding. Pawn Stars was born, a weird little mix of trivia, old junk, and awkward family tension. And it worked. People couldn't get enough. The show exploded. Suddenly, he wasn't just a pawnbroker, he was a TV star. The store exploded with visitors, 10,000 items crammed into every corner, each with a story and a price tag. He became the narrator of a world where history met hustle. By 2011, the show topped the History Channel's ratings, second only to that fist-pumping circus called Jersey Shore. He was winning, but the smile on his face wasn't the whole truth. As the cameras kept rolling, the lawsuits started flying. Family turning into enemies, accusations of fraud, betrayal, secret deals, even his mother got pulled into it. The drama wasn't staged for TV, it was real, raw, and painful. There were moments he could have walked away, but something kept him anchored. Maybe it was pride, maybe guilt, maybe the echo of his dad's voice telling him to hold the line. Either way, he never let go. Pawn Stars still draws crowds. But now it's more nostalgia than novelty. People walk in looking for the magic they saw on screen. He gives them a smile, maybe a quip, maybe a story. But then he goes quiet again. He once said he could spend his whole life reading. Maybe because books were the only place that made sense when nothing else did, he never got that peaceful library life. Instead, he got lights, lawsuits, and late nights in Vegas. But through it all, he never quit. The pawn shop still stands, surrounded by noise, guarded by memories. Corey still drops in and he still opens the doors, still makes deals, still hides the pain behind those half smiles. This isn't just a story about a man who sold old junk for new money. It's about someone who crawled through heartbreak, loss, and chaos and somehow turned it into a legacy. He thought the worst was done, but more pain was coming fast.
Rick is a hard person to deal with because Rick loves Rick. Anyone Rick is with is doing God's work.
Divorce, death, and the Pawn King. Back in June of 2011, things seemed to be on the up. The show was a hit, and Rick made it onto the New York Times bestsellers list. But don't let that fool you, the happy moment didn't last long. Before the year wrapped up, his second marriage hit a wall. Divorce number 2 rolled in. Soon after, though, a new woman named Deanna showed up. Like him, she was fresh out of her own divorce. They clicked. Maybe trauma bonding is a thing. Their connection turned serious fast, and he shifted focus back to his shop and the growing fame of his show. He started showing up on shows like iCarly and The Middle. Yep, he was doing cameos now. Things were good again. He even married Deanna in a beach ceremony in Laguna. His brand was booming. More shows, more ads, and a pawn shop that was practically a Vegas landmark. But right when things seemed steady, life sucker punched him. His dad, the beloved old man from the show, passed away. Parkinson's took him down, and fans everywhere felt it. He had to keep going. The business didn't stop for grief. Losing his dad meant he had to take full control of the gold and silver pawn shop. He was now the only one holding the wheel. Not an easy thing to carry, especially after such a personal blow, but he didn't have time to fall apart. There were bills to pay, contracts to sign, and a legacy to protect. Then came the pandemic. 2020 brought more than a virus. It brought stress, financial pressure, and a whole lot of fear. Las Vegas, the city that never sleeps, turned into a ghost town. Tourists vanished. Locals stayed home. The pawn shop, once packed with walk-ins and curious fans, was empty. He did what he could. He lowered interest rates. He gave people extra time to get their items back. He tried to keep things human, to help the same people who had helped his business grow. He had faith that everything would go back to normal within 6 months. But the months rolled on, and the customers didn't come back fast enough. By the end of the year, the numbers were a nightmare. The shop made just $37,000. For a business that was used to pulling in $1 million or more each year, this was a disaster. Lights had to stay on, employees had to be paid, and he was watching the empire he built start to crack. Then came another personal hit. His marriage to Deanna collapsed. The spark was gone, and the bond just couldn't hold anymore. Divorce number 3 joined his list of troubles, but even then he kept some hope. He had gained 3 daughters from that relationship, and his son Corey and sidekick Chumlee were still by his side.
Okay, it is really easy to be happy in this world. Yes, I have been married 3 times, and I just proposed again, and I am happy.
He didn't waste time wallowing. Before long, he was back at the altar. Amanda Palmer became wife number 4. Maybe he believes in love more than people think. Maybe he just hates being alone. Either way, the wedding bells rang again. But peace didn't last. The next twist in his story wasn't just painful, it was bizarre. His own mother took him to court. A lawsuit over the ownership of the pawn shop hit the headlines. She said he had gotten her to sign over her majority share while she was still recovering from a coma. That's not just messy, that's a family feud set to explode. Joanne, his mom, claimed she was being left behind while he took in all the money. She said the regular checks she used to get from the shop had stopped. She said he never gave her the proper financial reports. She wanted answers. She wanted justice. She wanted back what she believed was hers. He, in turn, said she was being manipulated, that people around her were feeding her bad information. But she didn't back down. She filed a restraining order. She wanted to stop him from selling assets, from hiding money, from doing anything that might hurt her share in the business. And then came the part that broke everyone's hearts. In January of 2024, his son Adam died. It was an overdose, fentanyl and meth. He had been missing, then was found unresponsive by his landlord. The news spread quickly. A photo was posted with Adam, adding only a few words, "You'll always be in my heart. I love you, Adam." The fans grieved with him. Adam hadn't been on the show, but he was still family. A father losing his son in that way? It's a pain most can't imagine, but he kept showing up. He kept the shop open. He kept moving because stopping might break him entirely. That year, he started exploring politics. Nevada became his focus. Maybe he wanted a fresh start. Maybe he thought he could fix more than just old clocks and rusty weapons. He was inducted as a Kentucky colonel, the highest honor from that state. It was a bright spot, but the shadows behind it were still there. Behind every antique deal and goofy moment on TV, he had been carrying a heavy load, losing his dad, losing his son, losing his marriages, fighting with his own mother in court, trying to keep a business alive during a global disaster, trying to hold on to something stable while everything else spun out of control. Even now, he doesn't seem interested in taking a break. He still appears at events, still gives interviews, still plays the part of the expert appraiser on screen. But if you look a little closer, behind those tired eyes and stiff smiles, you can tell there's more going on. The weight of everything he's lived through doesn't disappear just because the camera's rolling. He lost a lot already. But the next hit came from someone close. The rift inside the pawn shop. He didn't just hire a coworker, he brought in someone who felt like a brother. Chumlee wasn't just the funny guy with weird snacks and offbeat timing, he was a fixture in Rick's life, a walking memory, someone who knew when to shut up, when to joke, and how to keep things light when Vegas heat made tempers bubble. He was the guy you could lean on when you weren't sure how to price a dusty toy or when the cameras were too close for comfort. They didn't start out as best friends. Chumlee just sort of appeared. Goofy, unpredictable, but loyal in a way that made you stop doubting him. One minute he was laughing about old video games, the next he was handling a sale like a pro. The boss watched him grow up between the shelves of vintage items and customer complaints. It was like watching your kid brother figure out how to swim, arms flailing, then suddenly gliding like he'd always known how. But nothing stays easy forever. The first crack wasn't loud, it was a vibe, a shift. One day, Chumlee made a deal on his own. No appraisal, no expert, no heads up. Just a smile and a signature. Season 12, Episode 7, taped and done. The show called it Pawn Apocalypse. Cute. Behind the scenes, it felt more like a betrayal in slow motion. The man in charge didn't yell, didn't slam a desk, just stared. Quiet. There's a kind of disappointment that stings more than anger, the kind that settles in your chest and doesn't budge. More weird moments started stacking up, missed calls, late arrivals, conversations that drifted into nowhere. The shop's owner started noticing the way Chumlee blinked when he lied, how he laughed a little too loud or avoided looking anyone in the eye. These weren't rookie mistakes, they were warnings. March 2016 slammed through the front door like a wrecking ball. The man had barely taken his first sip of coffee when the news broke. Chumlee had been arrested. Las Vegas police had searched his house. What they found looked like a teenage nightmare crossed with a crime scene. Meth, weed, Xanax, over a dozen guns, some legal, some not. The reason? An inappropriate conduct investigation had triggered the search. He just sat there, didn't throw the phone, didn't curse. He just stared at the screen, trying to make the words mean something else. He called Corey. His son didn't have any real answers either, just more questions. It felt like the floor had opened beneath them and they were all waiting to hit bottom. He didn't show up to work that day. The shop rolled on without him. Tourists lined up outside, cameras prepped, producers whispering timelines. Inside, the blinds were drawn, heart thudding like someone had thrown a rock through the window. All the laughs, the loyalty, the shared history, tarnished. Not gone, but warped beyond recognition. There was no press release, no prepared statement. The network didn't explain. The show kept moving minus a familiar face. Chumlee eventually struck a deal with prosecutors. No jail, just probation and therapy. On paper, it was lenient. In the mind of the one who trained him, it felt like a crack that went too deep to patch. Fans filled the silence with guesses. Online forums exploded. Some defended Chumlee with every breath. Others called for his head. The man at the center stayed quiet. Not because he didn't care, but because the truth wasn't clean. He was angry. He was heartbroken. He missed the guy who used to trip over his own shoelaces, not the man whose name trended for all the wrong reasons. Chumlee came back eventually. He looked thinner, talked softer, tried to smile like nothing had changed, but the light in his eyes was different. He said he wanted to fix things. The listener nodded. He didn't promise forgiveness, just patience. Because when someone you love lets you down, the healing doesn't come in speeches. It comes in days, in watching, in silence. The shop didn't stop. The customers kept coming, but its leader watched everything closer. His laughter? It shrank. His trust? Tighter than a locked safe. The guy who used to hand off decisions to Chumlee now triple-checked receipts. It wasn't revenge, it was survival. Chumlee tried to find a new rhythm. He opened a candy store in Vegas, posted filtered photos, and leaned into fan love. He got healthier, smiled more, at least online. But the old friend knew the difference between a comeback and a cover-up. He knew what hiding looked like. In one episode, a customer brought in a vintage knife. Chumlee, always the joker, made a crack about using it to cut tension. There was no flinch, no smirk. The camera moved on. But if you listened hard enough, you could hear the air shift. They built something new, not better, not the same, just something that worked. Chumlee stayed on. He did the work. The show let him be part of it again. There was no resistance, but their rhythm, their jokes, their old vibe, gone. It felt like walking through a house you grew up in that had been painted over. Familiar shapes, unfamiliar warmth. Trust doesn't always break in explosions. Sometimes it cracks like old glass. Quiet, sharp, and once it breaks, no glue on earth can make it what it was. The pain wasn't about the ratings. It wasn't about money. It was the feeling of looking at someone and realizing you no longer know who they are. That the inside jokes don't hit the same. That you remember the laugh, but not the reason behind it. Years passed. Chumlee didn't vanish. He stayed. Keep trying. The other man watched, measured, took notes in his head. Not out of spite, but because once you've been burned, you start treating every fire like it could be the last. They made it work. On camera, the old team was back. Off camera, the gap stayed. Quiet moments lasted longer. Smiles held less weight. But the shop didn't crumble. Its anchor refused to let it. He had too many battles under his belt to fall apart now. In the shop, people brought in pieces of history, rare coins, vintage guitars, artifacts from wars and revolutions. If Rick survived all of this, should we still call him lucky or just tragically resilient? Leave your opinion in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.